And it's 7 o'clock in the evening, and now I announce the official start of our event tonight. Hello, everyone. Good night, good afternoon, and good morning. I'm Wenxing from National Human Rights Museum of Taiwan, and I am also the moderator of this online forum. The evening, we're hosting the fourth talk for the FIHRM-AP Forum on Migration and Human Rights in 2021. The topic today is Discover Stories of Migration in the Museum. Our speaker is Wu Jiani. She is Associate Curator and Leader of Public Service Division at National Museum of Taiwan History. It is our honor to have her being our guest today. Before we start, please allow me to give our new friends a little bit of background information about this forum. Starting from last year, we have invited guests from NGOs, museums, and also subject matter experts and scholars as our guest speaker for this online forum. We have had speaker from Serve the People Association of Taoyuan talking about migrant worker in the face of pandemic. We also have curator of What a Brilliant Time Art Festival, which gave a special exhibition presenting personal narratives of female migrants. We also have speaker representing the Garden of Hope Foundation who talk about the difficulties faced by female migrant domestic workers. And we also have Taiwan International Worker Association speaker talking about the experience of migrant fishermen in prison in Taiwan. We also have TIFA, Taiwan International Family Association speaker talking about the unfair treatment of new immigrants from the perspective of the Amendment of Nationality Act and overseas interview. And our last talk was delivered by Father Peter Nguyen Van Hong from Vietnamese Migrant Workers and Immigrants Office of the Catholic Church. He talked about cases of enslavement and how he advocated for legislation. So at each talk, we invite speakers to share topics related to migrant human rights. Speakers will present their different experiences in fields or active advocacy campaigning work, offering a variety of perspectives ranging from legislation, human rights to actual practice. Their insights reveal how NGOs and museums adopt different approaches and angles to further raise people's awareness of these issues. After each session, video of the recorded talk will be available on the official website of FIHRM-AP. So if you miss this online event, you can always go to our website. So before we start, I would like to take you go over our agenda today. The online forum takes place once a month and lasts 1 hour each time. I'm the moderator. And afterward, I will give an opening introduction. The speaker will give a 45-minute talk, and then we reserve 5 to 10 minutes for question. So you can use the chat box, which is a blue box on your user interface. So after you raise your question through the chat box, I will consolidate all your questions and have them answered all together by our speaker. And this event offers simultaneous interpretation from Mandarin into English. If you want to switch to English channel, please click your language floor in the lower right corner of your screen. Now, let's talk about our topic today. So Taiwan is actually a immigration society composed of different groups of settlers. On such a small island, we have a population of 23 million, and for different reasons like poverty or like globalization, social changes, we have different migrants moving to this island throughout the course of history. So they have been reshaping and shaping the picture of Taiwanese society, and we have a major group of new population coming from Southeastern Asian countries, and a lot of them came to Taiwan through marriage. And we also have a group of migrant workers. They have committed the prime years of their lives to this land, even though they cannot obtain citizenship. And we are really honored to have our speaker today from NMTH Museum, and they have been working together with these migrants through fieldwork collaboration, special exhibition, theater workshop, or teachers workshop. They present cultural diversity in their museum, and they also create a space for social inclusivity and social dialogue. And we are going to hear a lot of people's stories today, and that is going to illustrate a museum model through which they can actually accompany different migrants, and they can actually invite them over to be the protagonist of their own story in a very sophisticated and heartwarming way. So we are very honored today to have the curator of two exhibitions, Movement of People and Southeast Asian Immigrants and Migrant Workers in Taiwan. She will talk about what inspired her work as a museum practitioner, and also she will share her experience in accompanying these migrants. Please join me to listen with your heart and soul. Now I'm going to give the floor to Jani. Thank you. Thank you, Wenxing, for that kind introduction. So I think we have successfully switched over the screen. I'm really honored to be invited to give a talk. This is my first time giving a online talk, and I have heard that we don't have a stable internet connection today. So before I talk about these migration stories in museum, I would like to talk a little bit about the institution I work for, the National Museum of Taiwan History. Probably a lot of you haven't visited our museum yet. So this is actually my 20th year working in museum sector. So I dedicated myself earlier career of my segment of my career in exhibition curating, and also now I moved to the field of education, and through exhibition, through these educational activities, I have come to meet a lot of migration workers. So this is where our museum is. It's in Tainan, and it's as big as 20 acres. So we have a staff of 100 people, and then we have a huge collection. And for us, educational activities are of great importance. The reason why we try to feature migrant stories in our museum has to do with the nature of our museum, because the museum presents Taiwanese people's stories, and our special exhibitions and permanent exhibitions have a huge space accommodating more than 8 exhibitions a year. And of course, we have lots of exhibitions, and we have two big exhibitions that pay special attention to migrant workers. And Taiwan has always been a society of migrants. We have a lot of migrants and settlers coming to Taiwan. So this is actually a island of settlers. So this is the way we like to tell our stories. So before I dive into the main theme of my talk today, I would like to talk about a story. Um, my last exhibition was already 3 to 4 years ago. It was an exhibition about migrant worker, and because I'm going to give this talk, I tried to talk to some school teachers. So I asked them about their experiences with migrant and new immigrants stories. So one teacher gave me a very inspiring feedback, and I think it's very similar to our approach to curating exhibitions. I would like to share that with you. So, in elementary schools, we actually have a lot of second generation new immigrants. And in elementary school, around in the neighborhood of our museum, we have like 1/5 of them are the second generation of new immigrants, which means 1 in 5 would be the children of new immigrants. Therefore, for them, that will be important theme of their teaching materials. So I asked these elementary school teachers how would they design their courses. So they gave it a lot of thought. So they designed a educational program. So I asked them, why would you like to teach them about migrant workers? Since it's sort of like a very far away or distant topic, and they are surrounded by new immigrants. So the teachers told me that they have been having a long discussion about it, even though for them this is probably a close at home topic, even they have family members who are new immigrants. However, for some of the children, they will feel that they are targeted if they want to. If the teachers want to talk about new immigrants, therefore, for these children of new immigrants, they don't have to be singled out and labeled. Therefore, the teachers selected the stories of migrant workers. That is why here sometimes it really take like a detour in order to tell a story which is closest to us at home. So it is the same of like us because the teachers they will first choose an angle, for example the angle of migrant workers, and then closely and slowly they can add toward the theme which is migrants. So while we are curating an exhibition, this is something we would take into consideration. What kind of knowledge or what kind of information or messages will us like to convey to our audience, and how should we tell the story? Should we be subtle? So that is very important thinking we need to put into place before we curate a exhibition. So there are three themes in this past exhibition. So starting from 2014, we have lots of exhibitions about new immigrants and migrant workers. So we cover these kind of themes from time to time. And behind these exhibitions, we have actually three main thinking behind these activities and exhibitions. Please allow me to share with you my thoughts. For example, uh, we have a way of thinking and trying to convert material into the museum exhibition. So I hope this can be of some help to you. So for us, one of the major thing is about identity because this is a museum about history of Taiwan.
So we want participants to look at our history in Taiwan and understand that immigrants are not just in our time, because in history there have been many different immigrants coming onto this island, Taiwan. Your story is unique, but you are not alone, because we uh, because our ancestors were once immigrants as well. And also, we will talk about inclusion and tolerance. Why is this important? Well, because our visitors come from different backgrounds. Sometimes they understand this issue, sometimes they don't understand anything about this issue. So we have to um, well, it's impossible to stop some visitors from coming in. So we need to establish different communication bridges so that different visitors understand this issue. So we oftentimes resort to empathy. We want to inspire the empathy of visitors so that they can reflect on their own lives and then respect different cultures, different backgrounds, and reduce some disputes and conflicts between different groups of people. This is very important. The third point is cultural diversity. We see that when different cultures come to Taiwan, they actually exhibit different values and features in Taiwan. So we hope that these different features and cultures can all be conserved and valued in a unique way in Taiwan. So respecting diversities and diversity and differences is also an important lesson for us. So now I'm going to talk about a few activities and exhibitions that I have worked on. First of all, I want to focus on two exhibitions that I worked on. The first one dates back to 2014, the second, 2017. Actually, these two exhibitions we changed our approaches in the second one. So the 2014 one called Movement of People, the Migration Stories of Taiwan. Back in 2014, at the time there were already many migrant workers and new immigrants in Taiwan, but I realized at the time that there weren't that many exhibitions talking about these issues. Even if there were some exhibitions, they only focused on some like a tough experience of these new immigrants. So we were thinking about our approaches, and then we wanted to go back to history to look at different immigrants in Taiwan's history, different forms of migration, why people came to Taiwan in different periods of time. So eventually we decided to work on this exhibition called Movement of Thai People, the migration stories of Taiwan, including missionaries in the 19th century and also on the mainland immigrants from Dacheng, from mainland China. And also, we also talked about indigenous people moving from rural areas uh, into cities, especially the case of Chunzhi, indigenous people moving into the city of Tainan for work. In this exhibition, we also talked about migrant workers. We also talked about some migrant workers in the black market. When we designed our exhibition, as I said, we faced different visitors in our exhibition, so it was important to resonate with different visitors. I mentioned these different immigrants in Taiwan from different periods of history, but there's a commonality. They all were migrating from abroad or from different areas of Taiwan. They were all migrating. So, where is the resonance? Well, we found that regardless of which type of migrants, of immigrants, when someone leaves a place, when someone leaves home, common feeling, actually everyone may have this kind of experience in his or her own life. Maybe studying abroad or working abroad away from home. This is a common experience, like waiting in a train station, at an airport, at a port, etc. So in this exhibition, we designed something that you are seeing. In a train station, for example, people are waiting for the train, waiting for a new experience of work or studying. In this exhibition, we also used many different different objects. And this exhibition didn't tell as many personal stories, but through these different objects, we hope that we can, when we selected these objects, we wanted to have this connection, the common connection. Actually, such exhibitions were very few in the past. I know that probably you have many different experiences regarding immigration or migration that you want to share, but sometimes when there's a lot of such information, visitors and people don't really know what they should think about. On the one hand, in this exhibition, we wanted to talk about the purpose and the value of migration. And also, in this exhibition, as I said, we didn't focus much on personal experience. Rather, we focused on the broader history of migration. And we raised two questions to visitors. We wanted them to think about why different immigrants came to Taiwan. What were the different objectives? And another issue was that we wanted visitors to think about who exactly was Taiwan. What did it mean to be Taiwanese? Is it identification? Is it residence? Is it citizenship? Or all of them? There wasn't a fixed answer given in this exhibition, but we gave different cases for visitors to think about this issue. We observed the visitors on site, and I think the effects were quite good. Sometimes we may feel that we all are aware of these issues, but actually, it wasn't the case for many visitors. They didn't know that there were so many migrant workers or black market migrant workers in Taiwan. So, in this exhibition, they started to realize this situation in Taiwan and they started to think about this issue. So, this exhibition achieved its purpose by inspiring people to think about these issues and understand these issues. Um, Also, we pay a lot of attention to the fact that we want to accept different views and opinions and voices. When we curate an exhibition, it's easy to impose the views of the curator, but we tried very hard to allow different groups and different voices to tell their own stories rather than imposing a supposed views and opinions from the perspective of the museum of the curator. So we were trying to in a way co-construct or cooperate with visitors, with participants. Sometimes there were some participants who felt that they couldn't do that because they were not curators, or sometimes they felt that they didn't have anything worth exhibiting. In that case, we try to encourage them. Sometimes some participating groups, they a lot of times voice for new immigrants. So we also try to encourage that in our exhibition. We cooperated with professional groups and individuals, and we value their privacy. And also, we hope that everything that they displayed in the museum was with their own consent. This was important to build trust between us. We also hope that this is especially important when it comes to the issue of new immigrants and migrant workers. Well, 3 years later, in 2017, we worked on another exhibition, which is called Southeast Asian Immigrants and Migrant Workers in Taiwan. Well, so this was it's quite rare to have such a similar exhibition within 3 years' time. So we were trying to differentiate the second exhibition a little bit in 2017. In the first exhibition, we focused on a group history, the broader history, but in the 2017 exhibition, we want to focus more on individuals. And because of this exhibition, we did a lot of interviews and field surveys. It was only after 3 years, but the approaches were very different. The new immigrants also changed a lot within 3 years. They started to have more opportunities to allow themselves to shine in the Taiwanese society. So we wanted to show that to Taiwanese people. So in this process of preparation for this exhibition, we use this main imagery, which is what you are seeing, well, delivery boxes, which shows that migrant workers and new immigrants, they send things back to their home countries as a way to express the fact that to express their connection. And also we also show some perspectives from agencies. When we did field surveys, we collected different personal stories, personal information, and their experiences from different periods of their lives, and also personal objects, and also their thoughts on the past, the present, and the future, and also what they are proud of. We because sometimes these new immigrants may have experienced some difficulties and tough experience, but in our interviews, we found that we wanted to enlarge and focus more on personal values. We kept thinking about what was the point in this exhibition, and when we had interviews with new immigrants and migrant workers, we felt that personal values were very important because that would resonate better with museum visitors. This is why in this second exhibition, um, when new immigrants told us what they were proud of, um, we wanted to highlight that. And as for some unpleasant experience, we would talk with them about whether or not they wanted to show this aspect in this exhibition. Sometimes people may want to express the unpleasant feelings, but maybe after a while they decide not to. So we were very cautious about this aspect. And later, we focus on these aspects in this exhibition that you are seeing on the slide. As you may know, an exhibition has limited space, and especially there's limited space to show texts. So in this exhibition, it was very hard to display these conversations thoroughly. But I think such dialogue was still very important, and we didn't want to simplify the dialogue too much. This is why in this exhibition, we decided uh, well, there were many different segments in personal stories, and there were different personal values, but we only had limited space to show that in the exhibition. But we showed some QR codes so that people could scan the QR codes and understand the whole stories.
And also, while we are selecting conversation materials, we sometimes have to highlight the title. For example, to the left, there are some of the titles we have selected. For example, I don't like teaching as a teacher, and the only requirement I have for marriage is give me respect and freedom. The reason why we chose these titles has to do with audience. For our old settlers, they probably have some bias toward new immigrants or migrant workers. For example, for these new migrant workers or new immigrants, they lack a good education, so they have some stereotypical perception about these new migrants. For example, one of our new immigrant is actually a teacher, which is a respected profession in Taiwan, and they came to Taiwan through marriage because they want freedom and respect. So we can actually highlight these messages so that can probably give some impact to the audience or at the visitors, so they can actually feel there is a disparity between their stereotypical perception and the actual immigrants, new immigrants. And we have also selected passages or quotes from the interviews we have conducted with new immigrants or migrant workers. And that is actually very similar to a lot of young Taiwanese people who have traveled overseas to work as a part-time overseas. So actually we have seen a lot of things in common between these Taiwanese young people who travel overseas to work and also these migrant workers who have come to Taiwan. So this is also uh, another big shift of our curatorial thinking. While the museum promotes a new exhibition, we always have a lot of events which go together with exhibition whenever we can. So while we're collecting materials or objects for exhibition, um, how would we try to build conversations between new immigrants, migrant workers, and our old settler audience? So I would like to share with you about the approach we take. So it is very important to spend time with these new immigrants. When we try to find people who would like to take part in the exhibition, one concern would be that they have no prior experience with museum, and sometimes they feel shy to have their objects being displayed in an exhibition, or they don't see any value in these objects to be displayed in the museum. So we have workshops with them so they can come and share with us the objects they use in daily life. And the reason why these objects can be on display in our museum has nothing to do with monetary value. It is because these objects carry memories and stories, and that is what matters the most. So that workshop was very well received because people at the beginning were really shy. For example, the object to the left, that was the bouquet this person received at her wedding, and some people would actually share with us the firecrackers which was used at their wedding. So these are some of the objects that have shared with us. Of course, not all of them were put on display in the museum, but that actually started a process to allow them to look for uh, meanings and in relationship between the objects and their lives, so they can actually identify and realize the meanings in these objects. And for people who come into the museum, be it general public or new immigrants, they will realize, oh, okay, this is the kind of objects that can be displayed in the museum. So they would probably go back, and when they see similar objects in their own household, then they will see them in a different way. And also, our second strategy is to invoke empathy. So often use the concept of dreams and family so we can move the general public. We often share videos which show our interview with new immigrants. How would they picture their family in the past and the future? And we would actually come to realize that these new immigrants, when they come to picture their family, the family they would like to build, it would still be very similar to her own original family. For example, she would like to build the one to the upper right. She would still like to have the same house like she had in her hometown here in Taiwan. So we have stories like these that can be shared with our audience. And again, when it comes to empathy, we often resort to theater workshops. So we have this uh, uh, story playback theater. So we had this word theater workshop uh, employing the illustration picture book by a Chinese Australian illustrator. And we share with these participants the story with the theatrical tension from the illustration book. These migrant workers or new immigrants can actually share and express their feelings. So that is very therapeutic. And they can actually open up and also think about the experiences they have had as a migrant worker or a new immigrant in Taiwan. So the third strategy is about conversation. So I think this is the activity we have had with one of our old exhibition as I the movement of people exhibition. So we try to build a network, for example, of relationships. For example, these new immigrants, they have built relationships um, as parent and teacher or customers or just relatives in the big family. For example, like the exhibition photo to the upper left, we have tried to identify and highlight the relationships built between old settlers and new immigrants. So, from the perspectives of old settlers, we try to also present their perception or their description of the new immigrants in their family or in their daily lives. And also, we have a lot of interesting conversation between old settlers and new immigrants. So we gave them the new opportunity to rethink their relationship, even though they before were of different nationalities. But now they are living together as members of a big family. They take care of each other's child and they actually make fun of each other. So this new immigrant, she would joke about, oh, it means that I'm not really a bad mom after all because your kids are just as naughty as mine. So we actually see equality in this conversation. So we have a lot of interesting conversation like these, so our visitors can actually feel when new immigrants move to Taiwan, they can actually have different interactions and relationships with old settlers. And it is the same if we put their relationship back to the general human to human relationship, we will all be the same. So that is another approach we have adopted. And in our museum, we have open platform, which is one of our features that we invite visitors into the space. We make this space available to new immigrants and migrant workers. They can present their stories and they can even come here and share their paintings, their artworks, and tell their own stories in front of everyone. I think this benefit both the old settlers and new immigrants. And for new immigrants, this is probably their first time that they can tell the stories in the big museum, and that creates such a huge impact. And the process can allow them to actually feel the uniqueness and importance of their own culture. Their difference doesn't mean that they can only be excluded from the society. So while I'm doing this, I think it's actually a very meaningful process for all settlers and new immigrants. And we also give a space to these new immigrants so that they can perform in the museum. And this is a case of New Taike. It's a art resident program we have had. We have a professional theater practitioner who accompany these new immigrants so they can develop their own stories and then move the stories onto the stage. So we have participants or actors from the new immigrants community or the second generation of new immigrants, and all our museum staff work together with them, trying to present the stories to everyone. And for all the new immigrants as participants, it's a fantastic opportunity for them to tell their own stories, and they are also given a space to show their own talents. And also for the general public who take part, like for example, the students. They really enjoy the process with great passion. They gave feedback, and you can actually see them embracing with the new immigrants. And we actually see a lot of feelings resonates throughout the space and venue. So this is what we can do as a museum to help the cause. And also for Southeast Asian migrant workers, this is a map identifying the places they frequent. For example, this map shows the food they would go, they would they prefer, and also shows the places or the shops they visit. So we just want to develop this map for all settlers so that our old settlers can be encouraged to actually embrace this new or foreign culture. So this is actually a map of South called the Taste of Southeast Asian countries. So this is a map. It's like a tour guide for those who are interested in going into these Southeast Asian shops. They will probably feel it is a bit daunting because they don't know whether the shop owner speaks Mandarin, or they don't know what food to order when they go into a restaurant. So we give them a little bit of background information about the shop owner, and we also give them a little bit of, like, it's like a toolkit for them if they feel a bit of shy to go into these restaurants or a shop. They can actually take this manual. So this manual can actually give them courage so they can actually go and embrace a different culture. So I think I don't have much time left. So after these exhibitions, we the museum would always try to talk to the teachers and also sort of kindle their interest in this topic, and they can actually in turn kindle the interest in their students about this topic. So this is their 2015 workshop for teachers. So we have invited five new immigrants. So they came to this workshop and share with the teachers their stories. And we have the participants here in the photo. So these are teachers teaching at elementary school and junior high school. And a lot of them, the speakers, they are not professional speakers, or they were not teachers before. They were just new immigrants. And now we have this switch over. It's like a flip over. These new immigrants now they can become teachers, and then they can actually break the stereotypical impression these teachers have had in the past.
By doing so, the teachers, when they teach students, they won't pass down the stereotypes. These teachers are very professional, and our museum also helped them and provided them with guidance. For example, we communicated a lot with these teachers, and these new immigrant instructors, sometimes they felt nervous because it was their first time to teach such a class. So we helped them organize a small exhibition so that these new immigrant instructors could explain the objects that they were familiar with and share those objects with teachers. It was a good communication. And at the end, there were some good education proposals generated. Most teachers gave very positive feedback to these new immigrant instructors, saying that they understood Southeast Asia much better, and also they could resonate better with difficulties faced by new immigrants, and they became more inclusive and more understanding towards Southeast Asian cultures. And so they started to talk about whether or not it would be possible to develop such courses. So, in these courses, students and participants could could explore the different possibilities with new immigrants. So we think that maybe it's a good point, a good starting point for students to recognize their stereotypes or biases at the beginning. So we allowed students to identify the biases or some preconceptions when they dealt with these issues. So in this course, new immigrant stories were divided into different elements, and students themselves constructed and combined these elements onto the whiteboard and then shared the results with the other students. So at the end, we actually invited new immigrants to share with these students. It was really a big uh, impact. There was a big impact on these students. Their stereotypes were very much allayed and reduced, and they better understood the fact that there were actually so many new immigrants and migrant workers surrounding them in their daily lives. At the end, we allowed the students to organize some little exhibitions in the course. Sometimes in their personal lives, they couldn't see different aspects, but through our course, they were able to see that there were so actually many new immigrants and migrant workers surrounding them in their lives. Last year, we further extended this education effort. We extended this to teenagers of the entire country for all the students in Taiwan to be able to participate, and many different stories about migrants and new immigrants were told and shared. We think that it's a very good effort because students can start to pay attention to these issues when they are still young at school. I I hope that through my talk today, you can understand what our museum has been working on. When we work on new immigrant issues and topics, different people can do different things. Museum faces different visitors, and we have an education purpose. This is where we can have an impact. So maybe by doing so, more people will understand how they can cooperate with the museum in the future. So I think I only have 10 minutes left before 8 p.m. So I think maybe now I'd like to give the floor back to the moderator to see if there's any feedback or questions. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you, Danny, for your insightful presentation and sharing. I don't know if you have any questions regarding what she just presented or anything else related to this topic. Anything you are curious about. You are welcome to raise your type your questions or feedback in the chat box. We still have some time, so let me take some time now to say something. Johnny mentioned a lot about what a museum is doing. In the past, maybe some people thought that a museum simply presented values that they considered important, but Johnny and her team has transformed a museum into a stage where people can tell their own stories. And we see that through different approaches, different dialogue, and different accompanying resonance and empathy can be found and achieved. I want to ask you, Johnny, in Taiwan, well, at the end of last year, National Museum of Taiwan History uh, changed your regular exhibition quite a lot, and there has been a special exhibition. And on the internet, many people participated in that special exhibition and shared about that exhibition. This experience connects the past, the present. So we see that your museum has been trying different things in your exhibitions over the past few years. So maybe if it's possible, Johnny, you can share with us about your approaches as a museum, your different approaches compared to other museums. And the second question that I want to ask you, this is a question that I'm asking for some other audience members. We are going to edit this video before posting it online. We saw a map that you showed. I paid attention to that content, the Southeast Asian tasty map. I think it's very interesting. How were the comments created? Did you go to each and every restaurant and try their food, or did you have migrant worker friends or new immigrant friends guiding you to these restaurants? I'm very curious about how this map was created. We still have some time, so I'd like to give the floor back to Jiani so that she can talk more with us. Okay, thank you, Wenxing. I will start from the last question that you raised. You asked about the Southeast Asian tasty map. Actually, because we are in Tainan, in southern Taiwan, so we went to Yongkang train station and Tainan train station. There are many migrant workers gathering around these two train stations, and there are also grocery stores concentrated near these stations. Well, I didn't visit each and every restaurant, but our colleagues and I invited people who invited people to try these restaurants for us. Sometimes we went with them into some restaurants to do some surveys, some field surveys, and we hoped to explore things for those who wanted to go to these restaurants but hadn't had a chance. And Wenxin, you mentioned that in our museum was opened in 2011, and last year we were closed for an entire year until January 8th, 2021. We reopened. Over the past 10 years, we put some topics from the past 10 years into our regular exhibition. So in this exhibition, there's a section on new immigrants and migrant workers. And such information can be found on our official website. Wenxing mentioned a recent exhibition of ours. I'm very glad to share it with our participants today online. This exhibition is called Islands in Between Thousand Faces of Taiwan. When we work on an exhibition, we want to break through some existing misconceptions or preconceptions. We want people to rethink about what it means to be islands. Well, sometime well, in Taiwan, we have some offshore islands such as Kinmen and Matsu, but we want to redefine that because psychological distance sometimes outweighs geographic distance. This is a topic highly related to the topic of new immigrants and migrant workers. When people are psychologically separated and isolated, every person is like an island, like an offshore island. So this is the exhibition that you are seeing. So we want to help people redefine and reconstruct the meaning of an offshore island or an isolated island. For example, this is Dalingpu in Kaohsiung in southern Taiwan, where some people were forced to be relocated and displaced. And this has to do with our current pandemic. In history, there were some similar pandemics where people were very afraid of the disease, and because of that, people were psychologically distanced and isolated. So we use such cases in this exhibition as a way to rethink about such distance and to try to break such distance. This is something very important in this exhibition that we work on. If you are interested, feel free to visit Tainan and feel free to have a look at our new regular exhibition in our museum. In this exhibition, you will be able to find your personal values and what you are proud of as a Taiwanese citizen. And one more thing to add here, if you are interested, if you are working on some education materials, you can look at this as reference. This is a national culture memory database. This is a long-term effort. I see that there are many data and stories related to new immigrants and migrant workers.
So we have different materials available in the database, and we will continue to build up materials. So feel free to send your query through the search box over here so you can find materials need. Thank you for your attention today. Now I'll give the floor back to Wenxing, our moderator. Thank you, Jiani, for that insightful presentation. I think I can not get enough of it, even though time is up. So I still need to save this precious time to one audience who asks this urgent question. This audience raised a question to Jiani. He or she finds that it seems that this is not traditional way of museum model which is single-handedly decided by curators. It seems there are a lot of participants in this exhibition so they can actually have their voices heard and they can also tell their stories. But with so many participants and stakeholders, I think this probably distracting while people probably cannot have attention to everything. So the question to Johnny is that how can um, museum bring together different opinions and have everyone on the same page as participants for the curatorial process? Thank you. Thank you for raising this question. So, I would like to talk about our experience with the former exhibition that is movement of people. So together with another co-curator, we wanted to talk about stories of migrants. And therefore, we would build a framework, a basic framework, but we uh, kept open minded, we kept reaching out to organizations or individuals. And regardless of the differences between the organizations and the individuals, we repeatedly explain to them our framework, our basic framework, and it's actually a process of rolling adjustment. It was a constant adjustment of our thinking, our framework, and we I try to identify the areas in which they were interested in, and then maybe we can throw in new materials. So this is an organic process which would always lead us to new findings. For example, we have the issue of those people without citizenship. So this is not something we wanted to put into the exhibition at the very beginning. When we reach out to these new immigrant organizations, after we talk to them about the framework of the exhibition, they would tell us that, oh, I went to this activity or a seminar about migrant workers or those illegal migrants. So they would suggest us to reach out to these people, and then that gave us new inspiration and new ideas. After we reach out to an organization that work on issues of illegal migrants, and then these are organizations which were actively participating in social work and social movement. So we would incorporate them into the process. So this is actually a rolling process, and we have been constantly adjusting the content of exhibition. It was actually a very last minute decision that we finalized the actual content of our exhibition. So we have involved multiple stakeholders. This is how we work together. I don't know whether this is the answer our audience want. Now give the floor back to Wenxing. I am so sorry that I just vanished for a few seconds because of uh, constructions taking place, so I lost my connection for a while. I'm really grateful to Johnny's wrap up for giving us all this knowledge and information and her insights. So our time is up. Thank you for your participation. And I am really grateful to our speaker for accepting our invitation. And she gave us such an insightful and fantastic talk. And I was totally enchanted by the stories and the messages and information. I can really feel that this is a fantastic journey, and I can actually see that for participants who are online, uh, home or abroad, I believe you will feel very excited that you will want to visit the museum in person. Please make sure that you subscribe to the fan page of the museum, um, so you can stay on top of the latest development in the museum. And lastly, I would like to express my gratitude to two interpreters, Phoebe and Parker, for accompanying us through these past few months. And next, about our next talk, which will take place on 28th of May of next month, from 7 to 8 in the evening, Taiwan time, and the speaker is Qiu Zhenyu, an architect, and he is actually a Taiwanese architect working on the borders of Syria and Turkey, and he built a Taiwan center which help a lot of children and women in the Syrian refugee camp. And next time we will have this architect Qiu Zhenyu over online to talk to us about how they support those refugees who lost their home because of conflicts and war, and they were not able to return to their lives and homes as they were in the past. So, how the Taiwan Center would help these refugees who lost their homes and all lives to move on with their life. If you're interested in our talk in the future, we still have two sessions coming up in May and June. And thank you for your attention and participation, and my apology for the delay. Thank you very much. So this wraps up our online forum. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.